All right, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and get started. A few people may be joining as we go, but I think it's important to keep us on time. So, hello. My name is Rachel LaBruyere, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Digital Strategies team here at the AFL-CIO. This is the first time I've ever done a training where I can't look anybody that I'm training in the eyes, so bear with me as I get used to this new technology. In case anybody is having issues with the way you're viewing the slideshow right now, I've got this up right now, but for your best viewing experience, if you click on Whiteboard in your toolbar, and then select Full Screen with Toolbar, and then Fit Shared Application to Whiteboard, that should be the best way for you to be able to see this as we go, so just an FYI. So today's training is going to be about mobile. And oftentimes when I've done this training, I basically have said, so you want to go mobile. There's been a few years now where people have come to me and said, Rachel, we have to do mobile, we have to do mobile. And while I am totally a mobile evangelist, I don't think that it's right necessarily for everybody. So part of what we're going to do in this training is talk through what that means for you and what that means for whether or not mobile is right for you. As I think most of you know by this point, we have been calling this the 1U Digital Training Series. The 1U is the hashtag for anything union related on Twitter. I'm not going to go through this whole spiel again. I think most of you have been on multiple other trainings in this series, but just one reminder that there's a lot of really good conversation, a lot of rich conversation happening out there about unions and about the labor movement. And if you're not involved and you're not following the 1U hashtag, you're missing out on a lot of that. Great, so I already introduced myself. That's my picture. You can follow me at RayLab. And just a little bit about my background and why in the world I am the person talking about mobile today. Back in 2009, I was working with an organization here in DC called the Center for Community Change. I was working on their immigrant rights project. And we were really trying to decide what was the best way to organize the community that we were working with and for. And as an intern there, I actually helped them launch an SMS list, a text message list, that then grew to hundreds of thousands of people and ended up being one of our most powerful tools in the push for legislation like the DREAM Act in 2010. Now, that was a while ago. Things have changed. But I really fell in love with the tool. I fell in love with the technology and really the power that you can harness by using mobile. And I'm using it here at the AFL-CIO now, too. If you're not on our list, please join. But that's just a little bit about why and how I came to mobile. So what we're going to talk about today, my objectives really here today are threefold. Number one, that you start to understand mobile's role. So what mobile could look like and how it coordinates with all of the other tools that you use in digital, and how it can really play an integrated role. Like any tool, whether or not it's your email, your website, it shouldn't be a standalone. It should really be working with all of the other things you have going on. And then begin to think about how you could use it. So I'm hoping that in this training I'll spark some ideas for things that, ways that you could integrate mobile into campaigns you're already running, list building that you're already doing. Maybe there's audiences or constituencies that you really want to organize that you're not talking to yet, and maybe mobile's a really great way to get them. And that you leave with new ideas and inspiration, so that you really leave feeling energized, excited about it, and thinking about ways that you can use mobile in your own work. So our agenda today, why mobile? I want to talk a little bit about why mobile technology is really important and why you should be using it. And right now I'm going to actually clarify what I mean when I say mobile. For the purposes of this training, I am almost entirely talking about SMS or text messaging. SMS, which means short message service. I think it's something that you are all probably familiar with. Most of you probably use it on a day-to-day basis. So we're not necessarily going to be talking about building mobile apps. We're not necessarily going to be talking about the mobile web, although there will be a small component of that. So to be very clear, we are talking about SMS. When I'm going to use SMS and mobile interchangeably, which is probably not a best practice, but for the use of this training, I just want to make sure I'm defining that. We're going to walk through some use cases of ways that mobile has been used successfully in the past. We're going to talk about some best practices when you're using mobile, and then hopefully have a very lively question and answer at the end. So I'm just going to dive right in. Why mobile? In 2012, there were 8 trillion text messages sent worldwide. I can't even actually wrap my head around how large that number is. but it's really one of the most ubiquitous ways that people are communicating these days. And if you're not, entering the conversation on this tool, you're really missing the boat on a way that the majority, well, not the majority, but a lot of people are communicating right now. And I just want to note that when I used to do this training in 2010, this number was actually at 6.1 trillion. So it's really growing astronomically right now. And there's really so much potential to use mobile technology and to use SMS specifically to really be communicating with a very, very wide swath of people. So you see my little ambulance right here. Mobile and specifically text message is one of the best ways to do rapid response messaging. So unlike email, I would ask you to all raise your hands, but I can't see you. I'm sure all of you are familiar with how long the approval process is from something going down that you want to write an email on, you draft the email, you get it through approval, you get it loaded, you get it proofed. It can be a very long, unwieldy process. It really doesn't lend itself to rapid response work. Text messaging, on the other hand, is a much shorter form of communication. It's a lot easier to get loaded, proofed, approved, and out the door in a really true rapid response fashion. The other thing about mobile is that you're not necessarily competing for inbox space the way you are with email. That's changing a little bit, and I might be slightly different. I'm on lots and lots of mobile lists because I like to spy on what other people are doing. But the odds are good that you're only on a handful of mobile lists where you're actually on, maybe dozens of email lists. So you're not competing for the same inbox space with other organizations, other unions yet. And the other thing about SMS is that it's a disruptive technology. So I know for myself, I don't get a notification on my phone every single time I get an email. I would go absolutely crazy if that were the case. But I do get a notification every single time I get a text message. And it's very, very rare that I get a text message and it sits on my phone unread and unopened. And that's what I mean by disruptive technology. It's something that actually prompts you to open it and read it right then. And one of the things about mobile is it actually has a much shorter, what we call tail, than an email. So you're going to see your action rate spike really, really quickly on mobile, and that's part of the rapid response. And then it's going to die down, where on email your response rate is going to keep climbing for a couple of days. Oh, sorry, my slides are out of order. So the other thing about mobile is oftentimes we are trying to talk to communities who potentially don't have consistent broadband access. And what I mean by that is that you may be trying to talk to people who don't have internet access at home. Maybe they don't have a home computer. Maybe really the only way that they're accessing the internet is via the mobile web or a smartphone. But by and large, those same people will be using text messaging. So oftentimes there are people that we would like to be organizing, that we would like to be talking to, and we're using email, and we're on Facebook, and we're on Twitter, but those people aren't actually in those spaces because they don't have that consistent broadband access. Or maybe they are in those spaces, but they're not using them as frequently as we would like them to. So text message can really be a good way to sort of bridge that digital divide when you're working with low-income communities, communities of color, and other folks that may not have consistent broadband access. My last little pitch for why mobile here. I'm sure many of you have used a clipboard before, and I'm wondering how many of you have had to do data entry on the back end of that. I know I frequently have had to ask people, is that a 1 or is that an I? I can't read this person's handwriting. So, when you're doing walks, when you're canvassing, when you're at an event, and you're asking people to sign up for your list so that you can stay in touch with them later. And then on the back end, you actually have to take those lists, put them into a spreadsheet, upload them into your database. At some point, you got to clean them up. Maybe you have an intern to do that work. Maybe you don't. Mobile is a great way to actually get people directly into your database without having to do any of that in-between work. So just asking people to text in. Once they've texted in, you can actually ask them for any piece of information, zip code, email. If you want to create custom fields that you want, to ask people information about, their job, are they a union member, things like that. It's really a great way to get people into your system in real time, and it really cuts out the need for the clipboard and the horde of interns to do data entry on the back end. So one of the things that I want to talk about is this right for you? I've just talked about all the reasons why mobile is amazing. Like, yeah, let's do it. Let's definitely get involved in this. We want to start a text message list. We want to start texting folks. But let's make sure that it's right for you first. as a mobile evangelist, I feel a responsibility to make sure that I'm not asking people to invest in a technology that's not right for them. So not all of us are probably Scrooge McDuck. We don't have a huge vault of money hidden away somewhere that we can access at any given time. And mobile is an expensive technology. There are plenty of one-way texting programs, and what I mean by that is broadcast. So for example, you could send a text message out to a group of people using a free or a low-cost program like GroupMe or Textmarks or WhatsApp, and these are all, don't worry, I will be sending these around. You will have access to these names and these tools. But you're only really capable of sending out a one-way text message or putting people that are already your friends into these groups. But if you want to do what I call two-way mass texting, which is two-way communication, where you're broadcasting out to a very large list of people, asking them to take action, and they can actually respond to you in real time, it's going to cost some money. It definitely is an investment. The good news is that the AFL-CIO, for any of our affiliates and any folks that are a part of the Federation, we are already using a mobile platform. Guy on the left here, Revolution Messaging, is our mobile platform provider currently at the AFL-CIO. A very comparable tool is Mobile Commons. I know some of our affiliates like CWA use Mobile Commons. And full disclosure, I used to work for Mobile Commons. I am now a Revolution Messaging client, so I am not totally unbiased here. So these are two of the most powerful and robust tools that you can really utilize to both build and message an SMS list these days. And I can definitely talk more about these later. Again, if you are a member of the Federation or an affiliate, you can certainly come to me or us on our team and talk about, if you wanted to start thinking about mobile, we're here to start talking about it, help you think through it. But these are two of the best places to start. So meet people where they are. This is one of sort of the basic tenets of organizing, and it may seem really simple, but it's a very good way to start thinking about, is mobile right for you? Where is your audience? Who are the people you're trying to reach? Are they already online? Do you feel like you're really already reaching them via email, Facebook, Twitter? And maybe you've just gotten started with those programs and you're not sure, but as you expand and ramp up, really they're doing their job, and you feel like mobile isn't bringing that much added value in terms of your reach. But then, are you organizing people who are low-wage workers? They don't have broadband access. Are you organizing people who are, going to be out on a job site all day long and aren't necessarily behind a computer when you need them to be? They're not sitting at a desk all day long. Mobile might be right for you, but make sure that you're meeting those people where they're at and not asking them to meet you, for example, on Facebook or on email if those are not tools that they are naturally going to use. Do you frequently want to ask people to make phone calls? I like this little comic strip. When I first got my iPhone, it took me about 15 minutes to figure out how to make a phone call, which I thought was very ironic. But one of the things that people sort of forget about with mobile technology is tools like Revolution Messaging and Mobile Commons have really, really robust call platforms built in. So oftentimes I hear people say, we're trying to drive in phone calls, but they're actually sending people directly, to a direct phone number. They're not tracking those phone calls. They have no way of knowing exactly how many people made phone calls. I know we all, know that people like to fudge those numbers a little bit because they want to make it sound like a lot more phone calls were made than actually were, because it's really, really hard to track. One of the things that a mobile platform can do is really help you track those calls. You can see, did they make it into their target? Which targets got the most phone calls? How long were they on the call? You can ask people to report back. There's all sorts of things that you can do. So if you are really consistently trying to drive in calls as a part of a broad public campaign, mobile might be a really great way for you to start both tracking those and building on that. And one thing I want to note is make sure that you have somebody ready. This one is covered in posts. That's sort of how I feel today. But make sure that you actually have somebody ready who has a little bit of bandwidth to dedicate some time to this. Mobile can't be something that is like 5% of one person's job, 5% of one person's job, and 5% of a dozen other people's jobs. There really needs to be somebody, much like your email list, there needs to be somebody with their eye on the ball who's really got the big picture and the vision in mind, who can, either task out to other people some of the work that needs to be done or can do that themselves. So there really needs to be space on your staff to do this. Don't farm it out to an intern. You really need to treat it with the same respect that the other tools you're using right now are getting. So I wasn't around when the AFL-CIO started our mobile list, so I can only talk from my own personal experience, and I'm going to be reaching a little bit outside of the labor family right now, but these are labor allies. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about when I was working with the Reform Immigration for America campaign, why we chose mobile. We were launching this campaign. It didn't exist at the time, and so we knew we had a little bit of budget. The resources were there. We were also really trying to reach a segment of the population that had never really had a seat at the table in a really vast way using digital tools, and that was undocumented people. So we were really trying to find a technology that we knew people of color were using, that undocumented people were using, low-wage workers were using, and mobile really fit that bill for us. We also already had an email list, we had other tools, and we really wanted to innovate. And it's important to note here that we had buy-in at the top. We had people that were really making some of the management decisions that were excited about this technology. I know that we've done trainings on getting buy-in, so if there isn't the same enthusiasm for mobile at the top for you guys, some of those tactics are going to be helpful, but it was really great that we already had people bought in and thinking, hey, this might be a great next step for us. So I'm going to talk through a little bit of how we got started on this. For some of you, you may already have a text message list. You may have already been doing a little bit of this work. The AFL-CIO, we've already been doing some of this. We could certainly get better, but just, what does it look like when you first start an SMS list? So one of the very basic questions that you need to answer when you're thinking, hey, I want to start an SMS list, what could this look like, is what are people going to get? Especially when people are like, well, you know what, I've already liked you on Facebook, I already follow you on Twitter, I am already getting your emails, why should I sign up for one more way for you to bug me? So really getting clear on the things, the added value that people get by joining this list. For us at the Reform Immigration for America campaign, we boiled it down to three things. Action alerts, where we make it very easy for people to make phone calls into important targets on campaigns that are moving. Breaking news, which was really important at the time because people were hoping that a CIR bill, a Comprehensive Immigration Reform Bill, would drop at some point, which is laughable now given the fight that we are in 2013. But breaking news was a huge part of that, and the ability to take action when it really mattered. So one of the things that we knew as the immigration reform movement at that moment was that the last time that a bill had gotten near the floor in Congress to reform our immigration system, we had been outcalled and outfaxed by our opponents by a tune of 20-1. So we were really getting our butts handed to us. We were getting our butts kicked, and we knew this. So we really wanted people, we were telling people, if you sign up for this list, you're going to be able to take action as soon as it matters because we've got to beat our opponents here. So really, you can't just say, text in, whatever your keyword is, text in our keyword to our short code and join our list. People don't care about joining your list, but people do care about what information they're going to get. So really think critically about what are the things that we're going to be giving you if you join this list that are different than, all of the things that you already get if you're connecting to us online. So one of the first steps that we took at the RI4A campaign was we started with the low-hanging fruit, right? We started with partner organizations and ally organizations that didn't have this technology but wanted the ability to message folks on the list if they helped us list build. So we signed up a lot of what are called memoranda of understanding, so a lot of MOUs, a lot of agreements that if folks helped build the list for us locally, then they would get to send messages, like 2 messages a month on their own local campaigns while we also message nationally. So really thinking about what's your structure look like, what are the people that are really going to help you build the list initially with that low-hanging fruit and making sure that it's a mutually beneficial agreement in the beginning. But then we started the sort of heavy lifting. So we would have people in any interview that folks did when we were launching the campaign, whether or not it was on radio, on television, in print, they would plug the SMS system. And for us at that moment, it was text justice to 69866. That was how people could join our list. So every single time somebody gave an interview, they mentioned it. It was also on all of the materials that came out of our shop. I can't tell you how frequently people are like, well, we started a text message list, but it's not growing. And it's not on any of their flyers or their hand cards or their posters or their T-shirts. Make sure that you're really advertising that everywhere that you possibly can. Asking people to tell a friend, you know, Google ads, Facebook ads, all of the basic ways that you list build, they apply to mobile. And that was really the way that we started, you know, building the list in a consistent way. This seems like a very obvious way to build an SMS list, but it's the way most frequently that people overlook when they get started. Add in a cell phone field into all of your online forms. A lot of people are really worried about doing this up front. They think that people don't want to give them that information. It's really private information. You know, people don't want to give you their cell phone number. What I have found anecdotally in my own work is that by and large is not true. If you're really worried about it, you can make it optional. But if you start a mobile list on your homepage, there should be a super simple way for people to sign up for these updates. And every single time that you send out any sort of action, you know, that you've created on the back end of Salsa, for example, make sure you've got that cell phone field in there. It's a really, really, really easy way to get some consistent list growth on your SMS list, and it's really, really a low load. One great example of, these are out of order. One great example of a way that we built the list here at the AFL-CIO, our text message list wasn't very large as of last year's election, and we had actually never sent a dedicated email before. We'd really kept the list separate. But we sent a dedicated email to the list asking, hey, do you want to sign up for text updates? And this is important for a couple of reasons. You know, a couple of minutes ago I talked about making sure that you're telling people what they're going to get when they sign up. We were really clear that we wanted people, you see here, we wanted to let people know that we would be sending them breaking updates, news on our own internal polling, and any of the big breaking news, possibly before they have it, that we have to share. This was on Election Day. So we actually doubled our list size, and it made us realize that we really hadn't given people the opportunity to join the SMS list from the other tools that we were using. But it also made us realize that if you're very clear with why this is important for people to join, and you're clear internally with why it's important for people to join, they are going to join if you ask them to. One of the things that CWA, who Beth Allen I don't think is on here, but she does a really fantastic job at CWA with their SMS list. And one of the things they make very clear on their own site is do not use your company's cell phone. So one of the things about mobile technology is it is newer. SMS as an organizing tool is newer. So there are some interesting legal questions to navigate. Not all of those. There are some that, you know, we're still exploring, we're still figuring out. I'm still learning as I go. I'm new to the labor movement as of April, so don't have all of the answers yet. But things like, you know, getting clear that, hey, don't use your company's cell phone if you're going to sign up for our list. It's a really great place to start, and getting clear internally, you know, what are those questions that you need to ask, making sure you're consulting with any lawyers that you do normally with your digital work, and making sure you're getting really clear on either what are the disclaimers that you need to make sure you have, or what are the things that you need to make sure that you're consistently, you know, letting people know or warning people about. You also see down there at the bottom it says message and data rates may apply. That is standard legal language that you need to have on any opt-in where you're asking people to join an SMS. Let them know that, you know, they may be, some people are still charged per text message. Some people still have extra data rates if they're clicking through to a mobile web page. So make sure that you're always including that. So again, with building the list, a very, very recent example of an organization that had explosive SMS list growth recently was the NAACP. I have a friend over there that has been managing the mobile list for a while, and it had sort of been stagnating, and she was experimenting with all sorts of new things that she was hoping would really build the list. But what ended up building the list for them was after the Trayvon Martin verdict was handed down, they immediately started a petition to the Department of Justice asking them to file civil rights charges on behalf of Trayvon Martin. And they set up very quickly, because it's very easy to do on SMS, they set up a keyword, and that keyword is justice, you see here. So text justice to 62227, and they ended up having over 300,000 people text in. It's beyond that now, but their SMS list just grew astronomically. Now, you're not always going to have those, you're not going to always be able to like plug in at the right place and the right time of those moments, but it's really important to be thinking about them and giving people a really, really simple, easy way to plug into a campaign or plug into a moment via their cell phone, which people always have on them. And that's a really, really great way to get explosive list growth, is really making sure that rapid response moments like flashpoints, you're really taking advantage of those on the list, and you're also letting everybody know that this is a really, really super simple way for people to join in this. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit here, and I'm sorry, I know I'm going pretty fast, but I want to make sure that we've got plenty of time at the end for people to ask questions, because I think you're probably going to have a lot. But I'm going to shift gears a little bit here, going from building the list into a few use cases. I want to be really clear before I start talking about these use cases. They are not at all exhaustive. I actually cut down quite a bit of what I typically talk about here because I wanted to give a lot of time for questions. But they are just good examples of, if you were using an SMS list, you did decide to invest in this technology, here are ways that you could be messaging your list or engaging people. So first thing I'm going to talk about is call campaigns. This is, for a lot of people, and especially in my experience, for a lot of people, this is sort of like the bread and butter of why they have built a text message list. One of the reasons that using text message is so effective at driving calls is people don't actually have to switch tools. So say you've tweeted out a phone number, unless people are on their phone on Twitter, they actually have to go from their computer, pick up their phone, find their phone, look back at the computer, enter in the number, make the phone call. On SMS, it's all right there on their phone. They don't have to switch tools, and it's made super, super simple. So this is a very old example, but we do this really consistently with the AFL-CIO list currently too. So this is an example of an alert that you would see. You would get this on your phone. Immigration alert, new U.S. government proposal risks more family deportations. Call now to stop the plan. You see that phone number, and you can, on smartphones, that becomes a clickable number, so you can just click it and call the number automatically. Another great thing about platforms like Revolution Messaging or Mobile Commons is you can actually, in that message to your subscribers, you can say reply call to make a phone call. So people don't even actually have to dial a number. They don't even have to click through. They can just respond directly to the text message with the word call or whatever word you're using or your platform is using. They reply with the word call, and their phone actually receives a phone call from this 866 number that you've created on the same platform. You hear a quick script, and it says, in a moment, you're going to be connected to your target. Tell your target X, Y, and Z, stay on the line. We're connecting you now. You get connected through to that target. You make the ask or the demand or whatever it is. And the great thing about this is when you hang up from that call, you actually are going to get what I call a kicker text message back. So you're going to get a text message after you're done making the call. If you're already a subscriber on the list, it's going to say, thank you so much for making a phone call into, X evil target. Now forward this to 5 friends and ask them to make a phone call too. Or if you're a new subscriber on the list, say you're one of those friends that got forwarded this phone number and you made a phone call, you're new to the list, you're not on it yet, so that kicker text message is going to say, hey, if you want to receive more action alerts like the one you just completed, reply yes to subscribe to our list. So not only are phone calls really a premium in terms of impact on campaigns, I know that I've heard myself from legislators on the Hill in D.C. that phone calls have a lot more impact than, for example, sending emails or petition signatures into offices. Not only are phone calls really a premium for impact on a campaign, they can also be a great way to list build when you're using mobile technology, because after people hang up from that phone call, then they can get that text message asking them to subscribe. So if you're using a phone number that you're distributing out to, your field organizers, or that you're putting up on Facebook, or even that you're emailing out to folks, which I don't necessarily think is a best practice, emailing out a direct phone number, But there is some list building built into that, because after people make the phone call, if they're not in your list yet, they're going to get that that request to subscribe. So those call campaigns. Some just in real-time examples of call campaigns. The DREAM Act fight in 2010, this one's a little dated, but it's really great numbers, so I love to share it. We had really spent the last year and a half before the DREAM Act was actually introduced in the House in 2010, really building this list. It was like what I was eating, sleeping, and breathing at the time. The list was quite large at the time, but we had also done a really great job of distributing those 866 or 888 numbers, those toll-free numbers that you can set up to track calls. So in the 24 hours after the House voted to pass the DREAM Act, the Senate then defeated it afterwards, but after the House voted to pass the DREAM Act, in those 24 hours, using the campaign, the Reform Immigration for America campaign technology that we had set up using our mobile platform, 77,000 people made phone calls in 24 hours, which was really an astronomical amount of phone calls for us, but it really was a product of getting very clear with people that when it really matters, we're going to let you know, of really building the list, of making sure that we're distributing out those phone numbers. We ended up losing the vote in the Senate, but it really was a great moment of realizing that we had built some real power using mobile technology. A campaign that many of you probably worked on recently that we used the same technology on was asking the Senate to confirm the NLRB confirmations, the National Labor Relations Board. So one of the things that we knew we needed to do was drive in phone calls to some target senators, asking them, hey, you're hearing from the labor movement. We need these people confirmed now. We need to make sure that workers still have protections, that they've got a voice on the job. So first, because a phone call is, sort of a high bar ask, on our email list, we ask people to send an email to their legislators. After that, we ask them to make a phone call using a click-to-call, which I'm actually not going to walk through now, but it's a very easy way to set up a way to make phone calls where you're not actually actively dialing in. You're actually clicking through on your computer. Your phone, the 866 number calls your phone itself, so it actually prompts you to pick up. And on the SMS list, we sent people a text message asking them to sign our mobile petition, so they could respond with NLRB to sign the petition. But we wanted to do that first, and then we wanted to ask people to make phone calls, because we really wanted to prime the pump, because phone calls were like the most important thing we were going to do. So you'll see right here, this is the first thing we did on the SMS list. From the AFL-CIO, no National Labor Relations Board equals no voice on the job. Reply with your zip code to sign our petition, asking the Senate to confirm the NLRB now. So you'll see this is actually my test case. I replied with what used to be my Minnesota zip code, and I signed the petition. This is what all of our subscribers on the SMS list saw. What we also did was we set up a keyword, and a keyword is just a way for people to opt into your list. So we set up a keyword that was NLRB, and people would send NLRB to that short code you see up there, 235246. As soon as they did that, they were opted into our list, and then we would ask them to sign the petition. So it was a way of both list building and engaging the list that we already have. The next thing we did the next week after we asked people to sign the petition was we sent those people who had signed a request to make a phone call. So you'll see here, Republicans are playing politics while workers suffer. Dial this phone number to tell senators enough, confirm the NLRB now. So people would click through, they would make their phone call, they would go into the targets automatically and make their ask, and then they would get the kicker text message asking them to share it. We had over 5,000 people make phone calls using our numbers, which was really fantastic. Really was played a key role in sort of driving this campaign forward. But I just wanted to give you a sense of, what are ways that mobile can really not just be a tack on, but really bring added value in an integrated strategy when you're pushing a campaign forward. So in the example I just gave on the NLRB, mobile was not only used as a standalone. We didn't just send a text message and be done with it. We really thought critically about how can we walk people up the ladder to making a phone call on both the email list and the SMS list. How have a public-facing portion of this where people who are fired up about this can actually join the SMS list, and then we phone call. So really there was a layered approach here that worked really well. I know CWA actually did this too. They set up an NLRB keyword. They were driving phone calls. They did a really fantastic job. Beth Allen, again, is not on the call, but if you guys have questions for her, I would point her out as an expert here. So those are the few use cases I was going to walk through today. You can get really, really, really creative with these, though. I don't have slides for them, but I'm just going to very, very briefly walk through a couple of others. When SB 1070, which was the Arizona racial profiling law, went into effect in 2010, it was really a moment where we couldn't ask people, or there wasn't a theory of change behind asking people to take more action. We'd already been asking them to call Jan Brewer, and ask her to veto it. We'd driven 8,000 calls that way, but she signed it. And it really was a moment that we knew that people on our list, you know, we'd ask them for so much. They really just wanted a way to engage in the campaign that wasn't urgent. So the day that it went into effect, there were candlelight vigils being held across the nation. And we asked people, if you text in the word light to 69866, for every 100 people that text in, we're going to light a candle at our own candlelight vigil here in D.C. We ended up having 18,000 people text in the word light. I had to lug over 1,800 tea lights down to Lafayette Square Park. It was kind of, and it rained. But it was a really, really lovely way for people to be able to engage that both had an offline impact and had a really sort of, this isn't the moment where the sky is falling and you have to make a phone call, but we're actually engaging with you in ways that are interesting and meaningful and aren't just take action. So that's just one example of like a really creative way that you can engage the SMS list in what is not a typical sign a petition, make a phone call, ask. We can talk about those with folks offline too. I, again, want to leave a lot of room for questions at the end. So again, one more slide on use cases. So this is great. This is what's going on right now. So as I'm sure most of you know, the AFL-CIO is all in on immigration reform right now. I'm sorry. I know that my PowerPoint is really immigration heavy. It's my background, so it's what I know. But one of the things that we're doing this August that multiple other affiliates and allies are working on is a petition to GOP House leadership, especially John Boehner, asking them for a vote on a path to citizenship when they come back in September. So during August recess, this is our huge push. Our goal is to get 500,000 signatures across, the community, allies, affiliates, us, and others that we will then deliver when they come back from recess. One of the things I was thinking about as we were thinking about this petition push is so often a petition push is like, all right, we're going to set up our petition on Salsa. We're going to push it out to our email list. We're going to tweet it. We're going to Facebook it. And they're probably going to email it again. And then, then that's it. And so one of the things I wanted to make sure we did here was that we had a mobile component because so many people are going to be at Labor Day events, are going to be at town halls, are going to be really doing the offline boots on the ground work during August. And they're not all going to be marching around with laptops. They're not all going to be able to sign a web-based petition at any given moment. But what they can do is take out their cell phones and text the word NOW to 235246. If any of you are in front of your cell phone and want to do it just quickly so you can join those like 500,000 people that are signing this petition, but also just to see what it's like, it's a very easy thing for an organizer that has a mic, that has a megaphone, or that's on the stage at an event to get up there, get the crowd fired up and say, you know what, this needs to happen now. We all know why it's important. You all know why it's important. And rather than saying, so when you go back home, I want you to get on your computer and go to this URL, you can say, take out your phone right now. Text in this word to this number, and you will take action in real time as we're all standing here. Again, it's a really great way to get people into your database in real time. You don't have to pass around a clipboard and then do the data entry on the back end. It's also a really, really great way for people to be able to take action right there as they're fired up. Another way to do this is to actually set up a phone number. If you have a target, in this instance we have Boehner, so we could also set up a phone number that people are calling. People really, really like to make those phone calls when they're riled up and when they're angry, so we could also set up a phone number, have them call that phone number, and the text message they get on the follow-up is like, reply now to also sign the petition. There are multiple ways to do this. But this is a use case that is actually happening right now. We currently have over 20,000 total signatures just on the AFL-CIO side on our petition, but we also have over 3,000 people that have texted in now, and 300 of those people so far are new, and that's really before the August events really ramp up. So we're really hoping to bring some new people into the list this way. So now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about some best practices. So I've talked your ear off about why mobile is fantastic, why it's great for rapid response, why you should be using it, but I haven't really talked to you in real terms about like what does it mean, what does it look like to write a text message, what does it look like to message a mobile list. So text messages are 160 characters long, including spaces. That's slightly different than tweets. Tweets are 140 characters long, including spaces. So one of the best things that I tell people that you can do when you are trying to learn how to write a good text message is start tweeting. It really helps you to be able to communicate in a much shorter fashion. It helps you, I can actually eyeball a group of texts and tell you if it's going to fit into a text message or not because I've written so many. But when I started writing text messages for my organization, I was in grad school and I was used to writing long, unwieldy papers. So it really took some learning. But this slide is totally true. I draft a text message and it's exactly 160 characters. I get very excited. It's like just, you nailed it. Make sure that you include an ask. The only time that this isn't true, the only time that I think it's okay to not include an ask in a text message is if it's really, really important breaking news. We actually did this recently when UFCW affiliated. We sent out a text message that didn't have an ask. It was just announcing this very, very exciting moment. But a couple of things about text messages that are slightly different than email. Text messages can cost some of your users money. Some people are still on a pay-as-you-go plan. They pay per text message. Make sure that this text message matters enough that they're not going to be pissed off that they had to pay 10 cents for you to send them a piece of information that they couldn't even take action on. And again, text message is great for rapid response. People reply immediately. But if you're overwhelming people with text messages that they can't take action on, they're going to stop paying attention to you. So really, really make sure you always include an ask. The only exception is when it's a rapid response piece of breaking news that you really just want to get out to people that you know they'll be excited about and they won't be upset that you wasted their money on that text message. Don't send to a site that isn't mobile friendly. I feel like a lot of people there's this mystery around what does mobile friendly mean, or what does a fancier way of saying it is, what does a mobile optimized website mean? That means a lot of things for developers. What that means on the user end is that you don't have to pinch and scroll and search and dig through to find what it is you're supposed to be looking at on that page. This is a really great illustration of, if this were like a pizza company's website, you land on that page before and you can't really see what it is you need to do after. It's very clear, like here's our address, here's where you can call. It does take some dev work, some development work. You need people who understand how to create mobile-friendly pages to make sure that you're sending to a mobile-friendly page. But a really quick way to test it is just to send yourself a test message with a link to a page and see, hey, am I frustrated when I land on this page because it takes entirely too much navigation for me to scroll through it? So if you're going to send people to a web page, make sure that it's mobile-friendly. If it's not mobile-friendly, think of another way that people can be engaging. So if you want them to sign a petition, you're sending them to a salsa page, and you're realizing it's not mobile-friendly at all, and you don't have developers on staff who can quickly help you update that page, then maybe they could text in a keyword to sign the petition. Maybe they could respond with their zip code to sign the petition. There's ways of going around it, but it's really one of my biggest pet peeves is when I get a text message and I go to a site and I'm like, oh, I can barely read this. So just really make sure that you're keeping an eye on that for folks. Brand your text. And what I mean by that, you'll see here this example on the left. The short code that is being used here is 69866. This is what is called a shared short code. What I mean by that is you can see here there are 3 different organizations that I have gotten text messages from recently on this short code. This shared short codes are a lot cheaper. So, for example, CWA is on this short code, 69866. The AFL-CIO has our own short code. It's 235246. No other organizations are sending messages from that short code, but I still like to brand and say AFL-CIO at the beginning, so you're very clear about who these messages are coming from. So, for example, on 69866, if none of these folks, if World Wildlife Foundation or the Immigration Campaign or Planned Parenthood for America had said, hey, this is us first, I would have no idea what was going on in these text messages. So especially when you're on a shared shortcode, it's really important to brand that text message. Make sure people know who the heck this text message is coming from. Otherwise, it's very, very, very confusing user experience. People always have to opt in to be a part of your text message program. So I know that oftentimes people are like, well, we already have phone numbers for people in this database. Can't we just take those phone numbers and like upload them into our new text message tool, and then we can just start sending people text messages? No, absolutely not. You can't. In the last election cycle, there was really a big crackdown on some spamming that happened on the other side, on the right, some spamming of some phone numbers that people had bought. And they're really, really cracking down on this because this is sort of like the cutting edge of, you know, the mobile technology law here. So make sure that people are always opting in, whether or not that's texting into a, you know, a keyword, whether or not that's making sure that you have, this is an example pulled from supporter cards that we're pushing out for Labor Day. If there's a place for people to put their cell phone number, I much prefer that they text in directly because then we don't have to do data entry. But if you want a place for people to write in their cell phone number, you need to have that checkbox there. You can have it pre-checked so that people can actually indicate in the second checkbox that, no, I don't want to sign up. But it always needs to be there because you need to have very, very clear evidence that people have opted into that text message list, not just upload you know, an Excel file of supporters of who you already have phone numbers for and start messaging them. You can get in trouble, and it can be very, very, very hefty fines. So I have left plenty of time for questions. We're at about, well, not as much time as I was hoping, but I just threw a ton of information at you. I wasn't looking you in the eye, so I have no idea if people are ridiculously confused, ridiculously excited, or some combination of the two. So feel free to go ahead and drop into the little chat on the application and ask questions. I'm here to answer them for you. And if you don't feel like you can ask a question using this today, I will make sure that everybody has my email address, but it was at the beginning of the presentation. So feel free to email me directly. I'd love to talk through any of this with you guys. But go ahead with the questions. Hit me with the hard ones right now. Did I really do such an amazing job on this that you guys don't have any questions? I just can't believe it. Okay, great. Okay, so my first question that I just got is, notwithstanding the part of the presentation that covered the basics, what are the first steps for a neophyte? I'd like to offer our members a texting program. I think that's what it's, a texting service. How do we start? Great question. So I'm going to go back to the slideshow. So a great place to start is, do you have the budget for it? And think about, you know, reaching out to folks at Mobile Commons, reaching out to folks at Revolution Messaging, reach out to my team if you are an affiliate or a federated member of the AFL-CIO. We can help you get that set up. But the very first place to start is, where's the money going to come from? And then the second place to start is, what is it we're going to offer people when they text in? But the very first thing is really getting that budget laid down, making sure that you have the resources to go ahead and start, you know, and sign a contract with somebody like a Mobile Commons, like a Revolution Messaging. If there are local folks in your area that you want to make sure you're supporting, by all means. But really, you need the money in place first and the buy-in first so that you can then sign that contract, get it set up, and then you start thinking through things like, what's a keyword going to look like for us? Maybe for you guys, you know, it's labor or it's painters, or what is a keyword that, you know, makes sense for you that you can brand so that people are signing up, making sure you get it on your homepage, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, really, that's a part of meeting people where they're at. So where are the people that you want to be talking to and want to be organizing, and how are they going to be connecting to the list? But that very, very first question is, do you have the resources? I hope that was helpful. I'm sorry if it wasn't. I think there was another one. I thought there was another question. Let's see. Yeah, great. Once people have texted in to sign the petition, how do you transfer their information? So we actually, that happens on the back end. So on Revolution Messaging, it's all a part of something called a mobile flow, and we use metadata. So I use like a metadata tag to make sure that I'm tracking all of the people who have interacted with that mobile flow. So I would go in and pull down, so for example, sometimes we're just asking people for zip code because we already have their name in, the back end in the database. So if we're asking people for zip code, then we're having, we pull down the information of their zip codes and their first and last name, and that's how that information gets transferred over to the signatures on the petition. Sometimes it's just zip code, sometimes it's just name, but that all happens in the back end, and it depends on which tool you're going to be using. On mobile comments, it's actually a little bit easier to grab that information and pull it down. On web messaging, it just takes a little bit of forethought, but it's quite easy on the back end of those tools. It's not dissimilar to how you would go in and pull, all of the signatures on a SALSA petition. What would the rough cost to a state for this type of program be? I would feel not even comfortable ballparking it because it really depends on who you're working with, what your list size, what sort of list size you anticipate, what are the sort of features that you want to make, do you only want people to be able to text back and forth? Do you want to make sure you have the call tool, things like that? So I really apologize. I know that you would like a ballpark figure. I don't feel actually comfortable in ballparking that, but Kieran, if you want to get in touch with me afterwards, I can connect you with some people who can do that for you. So you can get that information, pretty quickly. Let's see. Facebook, or web. I don't know what that means. Oh, there we go. What's the best way to start a list, a poll on Facebook, web, or? I'm not sure, Damon, this is your question. I'm not sure what you're asking, but if you wanted to type in a little bit more, I could try. So let's see. Have you noticed people responded to messages and wanted a longer conversation? That's a great question. Like they wanted to engage in back and forth conversations. Not typically, although I will tell you that if you do start a text message program, make sure that you're going into the back end of your platform and looking at the inbox every once in a while. Sometimes if you try something new and you're asking, I know one of the things we've done before is like, hey, we have this big meeting with, member of President Obama's cabinet, we can ask you questions. Send in your ideas for questions that you want us to ask at the meeting. This is an actual mini campaign that I've run before. And people really, really wanted to send us paragraphs long of information, and it sort of made us realize that we need to rethink that ask in the future and be very clear that it needed to fit into one text message. Typically, people don't want to engage in a longer conversation. Sometimes, very rarely, people do, and you can go into the actual inbox and look at those, and you can message people individually if they're asking for specific information that you do have. We already have members' cell phone numbers. Can we reach out to them and call them to get opt-ins or text, or do we need them to fill out another new waiver saying we want to get text from our local? You can do what's called double opt-in, where you actually have those phone numbers and it's a one-time thing. You could send them a text message saying, would you like to opt into this list? They have to respond and opt in, but that's really rare. I don't think it's a good best practice. I could definitely talk with you, Shell, a little bit more about the best way to get those folks onto your list. I think a phone call, if you do have the capacity to make phone calls to all of them, that's probably the best way, and say, hey, when we get off this phone call, you're going to get a text message, or not you're going to get a text message, but when we get off this phone call, can you send a text message, with this keyword to this short code? But we can definitely walk through the best way to do that. Maybe starting from... So this is, I think, the poll question again, which I'm still a little confused about it. I think that's it. Are there other questions that I haven't answered? And Damon, again, I'm apologizing. I think you're asking about a list or a poll, and I'm wondering if you're talking about doing a mobile poll. I know that that's something that folks that I work with at Revolution Messaging have done in the past. They actually partner with a polling firm and do like a straw poll. So for example, at the AFL-CIO convention, we could do a quick straw poll if we had questions that we wanted people to answer. They could text in to a short code and be prompted to take a poll. One of the things we do consistently is we do quizzes. So for example, what's an example of a quiz that we have done? Oh, at Netroots Nation in June, we had people texting in the word thug. We had our Hug a Thug booth. For any of you that have seen it, it's often a Netroots Nation favorite. We had our Hug a Thug booth, and people could text thug to 235246, and we'd actually ask them, we'd give them a pop quiz about quote-unquote union thugs. So it was all about, you know, union labor and sort of like breaking down stereotypes of quote-unquote union thugs. And it was just like a quick little quiz that really was more about pop ed than anything. But those are really easy to build on the back end of mobile tools and mobile platforms. You can also do polls, but they're a little bit more work, and you really should be partnered like with a polling company if you're interested in doing that. Let's see. Any other questions? Yes. Somebody just wanted me to remind you of your email address, my email address. So my email address, and I wonder if I can type it in here somewhere. It looks so crazy. Oh, look at all this. Is rLaBruyere at AFL-CIO.org. Oh, it's not letting me send it. But R-L-A-B as in boy, R-U-Y-E-R-E at AFL-CIO.org. And I think, I thought I had it at the beginning of my presentation. I can go back. I didn't. Let's add it in here. There we go. So that's the best way to reach me. I'm pretty responsive on email. I don't want to jinx myself here because I will actually be traveling to New York tonight. I'm doing a couple more trainings tomorrow. But I really, really love talking about mobile. I really, really love brainstorming with people, trying to get people started on it. So by all means, please send me, shoot me an email with any questions, or if you want to talk through anything, any further, I'm definitely here. And especially for folks who are either affiliates or are part of the Federation, if you are interested in getting up and running on a text messaging program, definitely come talk to me because we are definitely interested in making sure that you get what you need to get that started. Is there any, I'm going to do one last call for questions because we're 3 whole minutes under time right now. Wow, you guys are easy. All right, well, thanks so much, y'all. Really appreciate you tuning in. And the slideshow will be available really soon online. And again, feel free to email me and follow up. Great. Thanks, everybody.